Hi, and welcome to episode 21 of the IT Provider Network. I'm Terry Rossi, and in this episode of the IT Provider Network podcast, I want to share with you a few ways to get more prospects into your pipeline. But I want to clear the air right now. If you're looking for a silver bullet, you're not going to find it here. Prospecting is hard work, and you're going to have to do some.
Welcome to the IT Provider Network. Are you a managed service entrepreneur wanting to take your business to the next level? Do you excel in IT, but feel your business management could be better? Join Terry Rossi, where every episode he shares the skills, tips, and tricks that helped him to build a successful worldwide business.
I must admit, it took me a little while to get this podcast out. A lot of things going on in the office, and in my personal life. I'm actually planning for an awesome trip this Friday. I leave Atlantic City, New Jersey, heading for Delray Beach, Florida on a 60-foot yacht, a friend of mine's yacht. He's asked me to go down with him and mate on the way down, so that should be an incredible experience. One of my bucket list things for sure. So everything's kind of jamming into this week, trying to get it done and get my plate cleared for next week. So one of the things I was thinking about is prospecting and the fact that everyone in your company is part of your sales department. So regardless of how many people you have in your company, everyone that works for you is in sales and marketing. You need to make sure that you communicate this to them and that they understand that everything they do is a reflection on your company. The way they're seen in the outside world is the way that your company will be perceived. So what can you do about that? Well, just like your mother told you, teach your kids some manners. That would be the first thing. But you can also make sure you have things like a company shirt, right? So your guys are presenting themselves in a manner that's consistent with your brand and your image. They all look the same. They're all well-groomed, have a company shirt on, a pair of slacks or a pair of jeans if that's what your culture is. But make a dress code. Make sure they do that. I don't think your sales persons need to do that, but maybe a sport code for your salespeople. Also, think about company vehicles. I used to pay mileage for all my guys, 50-some cents a mile, whatever. But then I realized I could buy a little Ford Transit Connect van, wrap it with all the advertising that I wanted, and pay roughly the same rate and have 2 mobile billboards that were running around South Jersey advertising my company. So think about that. Company vehicle, but it needs to be clean. It needs to be washed. You don't want your employees showing up at a site in some hoopty wagon that they own or something that you own that's not taken care of. So take care of your vehicles. Make sure they're clean and washed. You also want to think about your employees and how they take telephone calls. Are they answering the phone in a consistent way? Is the way they're answering it the way you want it? Is it in line with your brand and your image? Make sure they do that. Force them to do that. Answer the phone in a way that you want them to do it. And then how about the way they end a service call? Are they asking your clients if there's anything else they need help with? They really should be. The clients are calling for a reason. They're already on the phone. Saves the hassle of the phone tag and trying to get back on their machine, whatever the case may be. Ask them if there's something else they need help with. If there is, open another ticket. Keep one issue in one ticket and one issue in another, but do it right then. So that's the first thing. Make sure everyone remembers that they're in sales. One of the ways we do this is that after we land a new client, we always schedule an all-hands meeting with everyone to take them through the sales process that just occurred with the new client. We talk about the leadership of the new company, the people we met with, the reasons we feel they trusted us with their IT needs, and what the key points that were brought up with them in the sales cycle were. We try to get the whole company preaching from the same hymn book. So when we're talking about the company, we're talking about our services, or we're talking about our team, we are all using the same vocabulary, and everyone in the company becomes part of the sales force. A consistent message across the table, whether you're in finance or service or sales or, janitorial, doesn't matter. We all can answer the question of what we do, how we do it, how we like to treat our customers, what makes us different than the competitors. we all are able to answer some common objections that a prospect might have. The next thing you need to do is schedule for success. Prospecting and lead generation can really be tough for some people. Cold calling is tough for a lot of people. But when I was building out my team, one of the first things I did was hire a sales guy. That's because I stunk at it, and I really didn't want to cold call. I was lucky. I think I told you guys this in a previous podcast. The guy I hired, it was like water on a duck. He would get rejection and just keep dialing. He'd dial 80 to 100 times a day, and he did it for 10 years, and he just retired. So I was fortunate, and there are people that are good at cold calling and really enjoy it, but you really have to find them. So in the beginning, when I started the company, I thought, well, I could just get one sales guy. He'd be my sales guy for everything. I thought that he could fill all the roles that I needed. I thought he'd be successful in doing inbound lead response, so just answering the phone or answering emails as they came in, outbound prospecting, cold calling, list building, taking care of our database, proposal writing, and closing deals. And then lastly, account management. He could work with our installed base for new opportunities, upsells, cross-sells, etc. Well, I was wrong. You really can't find one person that's going to be able to do all four of those things. And if you do, chances are he's going to gravitate either because of resistance or because of enjoyment to one of those four things, and the other ones are going to suffer. So what do you do when you're small? What do you do when you can't hire 4 people into a sales team? Well, if you can't hire 4 people into a sales team, then you need to schedule and dedicate time to each one of those activities: inbound lead response, outbound prospecting, proposals and closing, and account management. And you need to dedicate time to each one of them. You need to measure the efforts for all of those activities, because without all 4, things start coming apart at the seams. So start your day by putting the most difficult thing, the thing you despise the most, on your calendar, and just do it. It stinks. I get it. But do it. Get it on your calendar, and not just one day. Get it on your calendar every day or every other day. When you're prospecting, you should shut off your cell phone, turn off your browser, close all your tabs, whatever. Buckle down and just do the hard stuff. Whatever the hard stuff is for you, do that first. For me, this would definitely be cold calling. So that's the second tip for you. Schedule for success. Get things on your calendar that are part of bringing revenue into your company. Things like prospecting, creating proposals, and working your installed base. Don't neglect any of those things. The next advice I want to give you is to get out of your office a little bit. You can't meet new people from behind your desk or by sending, a LinkedIn request. You meet people being face to face. And I think that's an art form that's kind of slowly going away. And I think there's huge opportunity there. You need to get out and network a little bit. You won't be good at it at first, and you may feel uncomfortable, but start building your network, business card to business card, person to person. Think about events during the workday, but also think about events that you could go to in the early morning or in the evening. Try to attend a mix of trade shows, industry events, meetings, and seminars. And most of those meetings and seminars should be where your clients live, in their native habitat. Go to an accounting seminar. Go to a, trade show for architects, whatever. Meet people in industries that could become clients. Also, don't forget, see if you can hook up with your existing clients and go to events with them. Not only will you be exposed to their native habitat, but you're also going to be able to be introduced by a peer to someone that might do business with you. So get out of the office. Go meet people. Collect business cards. Hand them out. Go to conferences. Matter of fact, with IT Nation coming up, I might do the next podcast on effective ways to get the most out of a conference. Send me an email and let me know what you think of that idea. Terry@theitprovidernetwork.com. Next thing you need to do is plan to follow up. They say the fortune is in the follow-up. Or someone else said, if 90% of success is just showing up, I think that was Woody Allen, then the other 10% is follow-up. So make sure you follow up. When you're networking, have a plan. Have a plan to follow up with that person the next day and start to cement and build rapport in your relationship. Try to remember something you talked about and write it back to them the next day. And if you don't get a response, that's fine. But follow up again another week later, a week and a half later. You know, you're trying to build a relationship, not just collect a business card and a contact. You want to build a relationship. There's lots of tactics and ways to do that. Find one that works for you. Make a system for yourself and follow it. If you use ConnectWise, HubSpot, or some other marketing automation tool, you can probably assign a track to a prospect or have a tracker or workflow assign you an activity to follow up in a week, and then follow up in a month, and then follow up in 6 months. Whatever the case is, follow up, follow up, follow up. If you're using LinkedIn, drop the new contact into your CRM and make a note in the contact record of the mutual connections that you have. When you're cold calling him, you say, hey, I know Joe Smith, and he thought you might be a good person to talk to. Or, hey, I see we both know Joe Smith. Joe's a great guy. Just an icebreaker, a way for you to start building rapport with the prospect. In my company, I have an intern that uses my LinkedIn Sales Navigator license to look for contacts that might be good clients. I have him search for second-level connections. In other words, connections that have a mutual contact with me, that are a CIO or a company executive. Then I have him put them in our marketing system along with that mutual contact. Now we can do a direct mail piece to him. So, for example, here's the one I'm doing now. I'm doing dark web searches using the ID Agent dark web monitoring tool. I'm finding out if they have potential breaches. So let's picture your company has 22 breaches. I'm writing the contact that I don't know, and I'm saying, hey, Bob, I just wanted to let you know that your company has 22 potential breaches on the dark web. I know this can be concerning, and I'm sure you want to talk about it. Because you're a friend of insert mutual friend here, I wanted to reach out to you and offer you a free report on what exactly has been breached. When would be a good time to meet? And then I put a link to the calendar link. Nice, easy way to get an appointment. You can find a link to ID Agent and their dark web tools in the show notes for this episode. And I'll be happy to share the small direct mail piece if anybody wants it. It's nothing great, but it's a small piece, and it just highlights two things: the number of breaches and the mutual connection. So don't forget about that. Keep relevant data for anything you might have that could help you in the future when you're trying to break the ice with a prospect. Another thing I do on LinkedIn is I look for people that have jobs to fill. So I look for people that have LinkedIn job postings, and I reach out to them with a simple yes or no question. Do you think you might benefit from speaking to a consultant rather than getting a full-time hire? Do you think an IT services company might help you? And it's a real easy question for them. I don't badger them. I don't give them a long sales pitch. I just give them a yes-no question. If they say yes, then we schedule a meeting and talk. Boom, another lead in the door. You also need to have a premise, right? When you're calling these people, you need to have a premise for calling them. And if you're not familiar with the word premise, it's a reason. You have to have a reason to have the conversation. So what I found is the vast majority of your success or failure when you're cold calling happens before you even pick up the phone. The key is in your mindset and how you're approaching the call. You need to create kind of a theater in your mind, a place where you can imagine things going exactly the way you want, a place where you can imagine the call going great and you're landing another prospect and having a meeting. If you've ever listened to any Tony Robbins, he talks about the power of your mind and how by just changing the associations you have with certain actions, you can drastically change your day, your life, and your business. So think about it. It sounds crazy, but have some daily affirmations you can tell yourself before you start prospecting. See yourself being successful in the call and getting through to the prospect. Funny story about the power of suggestion and the need for a good premise that you believe in. One year around December, my inside sales guy was having a rough week. He must have been rejected quite a bit, and he wasn't getting through to many DMs. DMs are decision makers. But somehow I convinced him to use a different premise for his calls. Now, this is almost a miracle because my guy Jim was stuck in his ways. He had his premise, he had it down cold, and he didn't really want to mess with it. So I convinced him to use a different one. I told him to tell the gatekeeper, the person answering the phone, that the boss had met me, that his boss, me, had met the decision maker at a holiday party, and that I was trying to set up an appointment to follow up on how we could help their company make the most of technology. So the premise was I met the decision maker at a holiday party. Just that little bit, the fabricated holiday party meeting, and it actually did start with a truth for a few people, but then we used it for 500 calls. This little one thing rejuvenated him and drastically improved his contact ratio. The gatekeeper believed the story, of course. Everyone's going to holiday parties in December. It was all about his belief. It was all about the level of confidence he had. It was all about the gatekeeper's level of belief. The premise doesn't matter. As long as you believe it, the person on the other end of the phone does too. So that leads me into the last thing, and that's get out of your own head. You have to believe in what you're doing, and you have to believe in the value of your company, your service, your people. Get out of your own head. So what if you know a lab tech license costs $30 and you're selling it for $150? Whatever. Doesn't matter. Get out of your own head. You add a lot of value. You take a lot of risk to run your company. You need to be compensated for it. So imagine this. Imagine you went to the doctor with your son or daughter. Your child was gravely ill. Imagine the doctor determined that your child had some serious disease, God forbid, like cancer. Then the doctor looked at you. He saw you had some Walmart sneakers on and that maybe your shirt was a little tattered. He saw this and he prescribed the approach to your child's illness that he thought you could afford. Would you ever want a doctor to do this? Of course you wouldn't. You want a doctor to give you advice on what's best for your child, not some perceived notion of what you can afford. Well, it's the same with IT. Get out of your own head. Don't make assumptions based on what you think your prospect can afford. Give them the right prescription for what ails them. Give it to them straight. You know, if the customer has a gaping wound, don't tell them they need a Band-Aid, right? Tell them they need stitches. You have to be able to shoot straight. You have to be able to look in the eye of the prospect and tell them the hard news. Tell them the hard prescription. Yes, it might not mean you get the deal all the time, but it's the right answer. There's only one right answer. You know, there's not half a right answer. So get out of your own head. Realize that your products and services have value, and realize the value you're going to bring to your clients when you implement them. You're going to help them make more out of their technology. You're going to help them drive more profit to the bottom line. You're going to help them become more efficient in what they do. And you're going to help them retain and keep key employees because they're going to have a working atmosphere that works, not computers that crash. And people want to work for successful companies. They don't want to work for companies that are shoddy, that have crappy IT. That's it for the IT Provider Network 21. I hope you've learned one or two things. I do want to remind you of a couple things. First, make sure you sign up for our mailing list at the ITProviderNetwork.com. Very, very low volume, but I want to make sure I know who's listening to the show. You know, one of the crazy things with podcasts is I have no idea who's listening. I only get a count. So I'd love to have a name and an email to go with it so that I can contact you when the need comes. Second thing is if you could rate and review us on iTunes or Stitcher. There's instructions at the show notes on how to do that. You can find them at the ITProviderNetwork.com/21. And lastly, don't forget to have a great day. We are IT. Go get it done.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you've been inspired. Check us out on on social media via @ITProviderNet and visit us at www.itprovidernetwork.com for past episodes, show notes, videos, and more. And we hope you'll join Terry next time on the IT Provider Network.